Good morning, all. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Troman, has anyone signed up for public comment? Yes. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
All right. Agenda item 3, no cases to reconsider.
Correct, no cases.
Under agenda item 4, tax liability cases, we have 2 cases on docket 32 and 2 cases on docket 33.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The case is on docket 32. The first one is TD-24-015-0324. Commissioner Esparza
I agree with the recommendation.
and Commissioner Trevino
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
Agree with staff recommendation.
And the second case is TD-24-019-0424. Commissioner Esparza,
I agree with the recommendation that office manager is in employment.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman.
We're here to develop the record on whether the worker is subject to direction and control in the performance of her duties, including the order, sequence of work, and oral or written report factors that are missing from the analysis.
Currently, the majority vote is to accept the recommendation.
Second, Chair.
Yes, sir.
For the sake of having a complete record, we'll agree with the chairman.
Okay, rehear is the majority vote.
Thank you.
And moving on to docket 33, there are 2 cases. The first case is TD-23-035-1123. Commissioner Esparza
Agree with the staff recommendation.
and Commissioner Trevino
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you. And the final case is TD-24-021-0424. Commissioner Esparza
I agree in part and disagree in part with the staff recommendations. I agree that the workers performing painting, cleaning, asphalt repair, air conditioning repair, concrete repair, and resurfacing services are not in employment. However, there is insufficient evidence to conclude that the bookkeeper is in employment and that the company is a liable employer. It is possible for a bookkeeper to be an independent contractor if they have their own bookkeeping practice and their own clients. In this case, we don't know whether the named company is the bookkeeper's only source of income or merely one of her clients. Bookkeeper's employment status will also decide the employer liability issue. Accordingly, we should rehear this case to determine the extent to which the bookkeeper has an actual bookkeeping practice with multiple clients or else works exclusively for the named company.
Commissioner Trevino
I agree with staff's recommendations.
and Mr. Chairman.
I concur with Commissioner Esparza.
We will rehear the case. All right, that was the last of the cases for this agenda item.
All right, no fair housing cases under agenda item 5, no child labor cases under agenda item 6.
Correct.
Under agenda item 7, we have 1 wage claim case pulled on docket 32, 0 pulled on docket 33. These for additional discussion.
Yes, sir. The one case pulled on docket 32 is case number 23-053-837-9. Commissioner Esparza
Rehear to obtain testimony regarding why the appeal was late.
Commissioner Trevino.
The employer's appeal should be dismissed as late. The employer filed its appeal 1 month late and argues that the late appeal was due to a typographical error in the appeal number in the header of the WCAT decision. The employer failed to provide any evidence as to this typo that misled the employer in any way regarding the decision or their appeal rights. Since the employer received the decision and it did not provide any explanation that would constitute the exception to the timeliness rules, it should be dismissed as late. Dismiss the employer's WCCA appeal as late.
Mr. Chairman.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case. That was the only case pulled for additional discussion on dockets 32 or 33. You should have received the wage claim short form dissent list for dockets 32 and 33.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on dockets 32 and 33.
I second the motion, except for those cases which I am dissenting, as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 32 and 33.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases in which I'm dissenting as reflected on wage claim short form dissent lists for dockets 32 and 33.
The motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move now to agenda item 8, consideration of unemployment insurance cases. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Docket 32.
First case is case number 3478041, Commissioner Esparza.
We should find the employer's appeal to the commission timely. The employer provided its email address on record to the commission during the appeal period. To ensure due process, TWC has historically treated many different communications from a party during an appeal period as a timely appeal. Considering our very generous and expansive timeliness practices, we should deem the employer's appeal to the commission timely and resubmit.
The employer's appeal to the commission should be dismissed as late. The AT decision was mailed to the employer's address of record on 8/28 of 23, with an appeal deadline of 9/11 of 23. The employer did not file a timely appeal and raised no Guzman allegations. Therefore, their appeal to the commission should be dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. Dismiss the employer's CA appeal as late. Leave the AT3 decision in full force and effect.
Deem employers commission appeal timely, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3541784, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not correct. The claimant was only 3 minutes late in registering for the AT1 hearing. The claimant testified that she had several medical conditions that impacted her short-term memory and that this contributed to her forgetting to register for the hearing earlier. Therefore, since the claimant made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing, but was just a few minutes late in completing the registration process, her petition to reopen should be granted and the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony from AT2. Reverse the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We should affirm the AT decision. Regarding good cause, the claimant's failure to read the hearing notice did not give her good cause for her non-appearance. Concerning the job separation, the weight of the available evidence established that the claimant was rude, unprofessional, and argumentative with the customer. Because the claimant violated the employer's critical offenses policy, she was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for her non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, claimant did not establish good cause for AT1, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3570737, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. First, I agree that the AT named the correct last word. Concerning the job separation, although the claimant alleged unfair treatment and failure to meet standards is the basis for her resignation, the employer testified that the claimant was provided training opportunities and moreover allowed time to demonstrate her competency for the job. Since the claimant quit prior to taking advantage of available training or allowing the employer to remedy any work-related concerns, the claimant's separation was voluntary and without work-connected good cause. As such, we should reverse the AT decision. The AT named the correct last word, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. The claimant had worked for the employer's healthcare system for several years as a senior physician practice manager. The claimant was transferred to a new team in February of 2023 and was assigned to work under a new manager. After working for 1 week on the new team and prior to completing the training for the new position, her manager issued her first and final warning for insufficient job performance. This warning set unrealistic expectations for the claimant and was unreasonably given the lack of time and training the claimant had in the new position. Therefore, the claimant had good cause connected with the work to resign in response to her new manager's unreasonable reprimand. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer.
Voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response, correct the employer name and account number.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3573337, Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I agree that the claim was valid. Concerning the job separation, the available evidence in conjunction with the claimant's firsthand testimony shows that the claimant suffered from various health-related ailments which affected her ability to perform her job. Since the claimant was advised by her doctor to quit, The record supports a finding that the claimant's separation was the result of her medically verifiable illness. We should modify the AT decision, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MVI.
The AT decision should be modified. First, I agree that the claimant was unemployed at the time she filed her claim and filed a valid initial claim. Regarding the job separation, the claimant reported to the employer that she was experiencing racial harassment in the workplace. The employer took no remedial action to address the claimant's complaints. Therefore, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting, since the employer failed to offer any resolutions to her reasonable complaints regarding her working conditions. Modify the AT, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, chargeback. However, since the claimant quit in part because of medical issues caused by the racial harassment she experienced, I could agree that the claimant quit due to medically verifiable illness and that the employer's account should be protected from chargeback. Modify the AT, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MVI.
Valid claim, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
We have a majority vote to pay and protect.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, sir.
Case number 3578101, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is correct. I agree that the claimant was unemployed at the time that he filed his initial claim and filed a valid claim. However, regarding the job separation, the claimant quit because his lump sum retirement benefits would have been reduced by approximately 27% had he retired after the 1/1 of 23. Prior commission precedents have held that the claimant had good cause connected with the work for resigning when their accrued benefits were reduced without their consent. Since the claimant's retirement benefits would have been reduced if he had continued to work for the employer, he had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Affirm the AT, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant quit his job because he wanted to maximize his retirement benefit payout. There was continuing work available for the claimant had he not resigned. Accordingly, because the claimant quit to maximize his retirement benefit payout, a personal reason, he quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore modify the AT decision for valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3583464, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not correct. The claimant called in 3 minutes late because she was dealing with an attempted break-in at her home. She also attempted to explain this to the AT receptionist. The claimant called in to register for the hearing, but was placed on hold for several minutes, which prevented her from participating in the hearing. Since the claimant made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing, but was prevented from participating due to circumstances beyond her control, she established good cause for missing AT1, and the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony. Reverse the AT, claimant had good cause for AT1, resubmit.
The AT decision should be affirmed. As to good cause, the claimant's explanation for a non-appearance at the AT hearing are not persuasive when compared to commission records. As such, the claimant did not have good cause for missing AT1. Regarding the job separation, the available records supports a finding that the claimant was fired due to continued issues with coworkers and not following company procedures. Accordingly, the claimant's actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore affirm the AT decision. Claimant did not have good cause for her non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback.
Claim established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3588082, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not correct. The claimant registered for the AT1 hearing just a few minutes late because she had mandatory meeting at her daughter's school that conflicted with the hearing start time. Therefore, since the complainant made a good faith effort to participate in the hearing, despite also having to attend a meeting at her daughter's school around the same time. It should be held that the claimant established good cause for missing AT1, and that the case should be resubmitted for merits testimony from AT2. Reverse the AT, claimant established good cause for missing AT1, resubmit.
We should affirm the AT decision. Regarding good cause issue, there is no evidence that the claimant tried to contact the hearing officer when she realized she had conflict. Furthermore, the claimant's statement to TWC when she called in late for the hearing is not consistent with her testimony. Accordingly, the claimant did not establish good cause for a non-appearance. Concerning job separation, the weight of the available evidence established that the claimant failed to complete all sections of her required training by a certain date. Thus, the finding of misconduct is fully supportable. We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for a non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback.
Claim established good cause for AT1, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3609646, Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I agree that the employer established good cause for missing the AT hearing. Second, I agree with the claimant's valid. Concerning the job separation at the hearing, the claimant was oftentimes unintelligible and non-responsive when asked whether she was offered further work. On the other hand, the employer provided consistent and credible testimony that the claimant refused the employer's offer of further work. Since the claimant refused further work when continuing work was available, her separation was voluntary and without work-connected good cause. As such, we should modify the AT decision. The employer established good cause for missing the AT hearing, valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response. In the alternative, Commission should rehear this case to identify whether the new assignment offered to the claimant was too remote in distance as rehear.
The AT decision should be modified. I do not contest that the employer established good cause for its failure to appear at AT1. However, regarding the job separation issue, the claimant worked for the home health care company, and the employer provided no firsthand testimony to rebut the claimant's testimony that she was not offered further work after her assignment ended. Therefore, the employer has failed to meet its burden of proving that the claimant did not accept additional work, and the claimant's separation was caused by the lack of work following the end of her assignment. Modify the AT, employer established good cause for AT1, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Employer established good cause for AT1, valid claim, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, sir. And that was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 32. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 32.
I'll move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 32.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 32.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases of which I am dissenting as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 32.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you. Continuing to docket 33.
Case number 3563290, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is correct. The employer discharged the claimant for allegedly providing time off for a coworker who she had a personal relationship with. However, the claimant had no role in either scheduling or approving time off for the coworker in question. The claimant merely relayed the message to the administrator that the coworker would be absent that day, so that the appropriate individuals would be aware of the absence, and so that the schedule could be adjusted accordingly. Simply relaying the message that the coworker will be absent does not constitute any misconduct connected with the work. Therefore, we should affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. This case comes down to whether the claimant followed the employer's instructions regarding the coworker who claimed who the claimant directly supervised, with whom she was in a romantic relationship. Ultimately, the claimant's failure to follow instructions resulted in substantial revenue loss to the employer. Accordingly, since the claimant mismanaged her position of employment, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3594914, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not correct. While the claimant was out of town for personal reasons during the benefit week ending 4/22 of 23, the claimant made her number of required work search contacts and participated in 2 interviews while out of town. She was also willing to return if she had been offered a job. Since the claimant was engaged in significant work search activities while out of town and was willing to return home if she was offered work, the claimant was available for full-time work during the benefit week ending 4/22 of 23. Reverse the AT, complainant was available for work.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. Claimant was out of geographic area for the majority of 1 week for personal reasons. In accordance with commission precedent, claimant was not available for work. We should affirm the AT decision availability, not eligible from 04/16/23 to 04/22/23.
Claimant is available for work.
Short form set.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3604428, Commissioner Trevino.
The claimant's continued claim involved his work for a gig economy employer and self-employment. As such, there is no separation from employment, and the continued claim dated May 20th of 2023 should be voided. Set aside the AT decision, void continued claim.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant stopped working due to personal reasons, thus quit without work connected to good cause. As such, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving overpayment.
Set aside the AT, void the continued claim, no overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Ma'am, as I brought up before, in order to ensure consistency in the agency's decision-making, it is appropriate to formalize the principle that after a complainant files an initial claim, a continued claim should be generated or should not be generated based on work that the claimant performs for the gig economy employer in self-employment. Therefore, I would like to amend my vote to resubmit this case on a future docket to consider including this case as a new precedent in the precedent manual.
It will require a majority vote to determine the fate of the case. Right now, there's 1 vote to resubmit. Several weeks ago, apparently there was another case that was requested as a precedent. It's my understanding that the commissioners wish to resubmit that case. It's perfectly valid to request both because both would require a follow-up vote. Just so that you'll understand, whatever happens with the other case has no impact on this. They're separate. And that one will be coming back around as well. Should this one be voted to resubmit, then you would get both of them back on we might be able to put them on the same docket together. Have to check on the schedule, but just so you'll understand, the 2 cases are separate and it's perfectly valid to submit both for precedent status and vote on them individually as they come back. But it does require a majority vote to get the resubmit otherwise we'd have to vote on the merits. That's because the order that makes the case a precedent is in the decision itself. So the final vote on the merits would also include the order that the case has become a precedent.
Okay. Well, I was under the understanding that the last one, we had to do this for this case, for the other one to continue. But if the other one is going to continue, I believe we can just stay with that one. If the commissioner and chairman agree.
Okay, yeah, you're not voting on what happens to that one right now, just on this particular case. Are you changing your vote back to your merits vote? You voted on the merits to void the continuing claim and then change to resubmit. Just to clarify, are you changing back to void the continuing claim?
Hold on just a minute.
Yes, sir.
Okay, ma'am. We'll just go with the merits on this one since the first one was already established. That was my misunderstanding that we needed to do it again on this one. I apologize.
No worries, no worries, no harm done. So the majority vote on this particular case is the void the continuing claim with no overpayment and the short form dissent.
Yes, short form is it.
Thank you.
Case number 361337, Commissioner Trevino.
The motion for rehearing should be granted. The claimant had been qualified for benefits by both the initial determination and the AT decision. However, the commission appeals decision then reversed to disqualify the claimant. The claimant's MR the claimant's MR offers to provide 2 new material witnesses to support her case. It explains that these witnesses were not available to testify previously because the employer both discouraged and misled them, and describes how the testimony from these witnesses will change the analysis of her work separation. Therefore, the claimant has met the MR requirements, and a rehearing should be granted to allow the claimant to present testimony from her witnesses. Grant the motion for rehearing.
Although the claimant is offering additional witness testimony, the claimant does not provide a compelling reason for not providing her new evidence early, nor does she provide an explanation of how the new evidence would change the outcome of this case. Since the claimant has not met the required criteria for a successful motion for a hearing, it should be denied. Deny the claimant's motion for a hearing.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
I'll maintain my dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3619397, Commissioner Esparza.
First, I do not dispute the good cause ruling. As to job separation, the commission should grant a rehearing. In its appeal to the commission, the employer stated that during the hearing, a personnel change was occurring, and as a result, the employer did not have enough information, presumably about the case at hand. Since the evidence that the employer provided in its appeal to the commission is connected to the job separation in this case, we should find that the claimant had good cause for her non-appearance and grant a rehearing to enter the employer's evidence into record and take testimony from the parties regarding the same.
The AT decision is correct. Regarding the good cause issue, the claimant missed the AT1 hearing because she never received the hearing packet. Therefore, she established good cause for missing AT1. Regarding the job separation, the claimant was discharged for failing to properly process a customer's credit card payment. The claimant was unaware of her mistake, and she did not receive adequate training on the proper procedure for performing her job duties. Therefore, it was properly ruled that the claimant's action did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Affirmed the AT, claimant had good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear.
All right, we have majority vote that there is good cause. Mr. Chairman, you did not vote on that, but there is a majority.
There is in fact good cause.
Thank you, sir. And we will rehear the case.
Case number 3632450, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for violating the employer's attendance policy. The employer testified that the claimant provided notice for his final absence to a point total that would not have exceeded the threshold allowed by the employer. The claimant provided credible and consistent testimony that he properly reported his final absence by calling in the employer's 1-800 number, and that when he was terminated, he offered to provide the confirmation number that he was given when he called in, but was told that he was being terminated and the confirmation number of his call-in wouldn't make a difference. The employer provided no firsthand testimony or direct evidence to refute the claimant's testimony. Therefore, the employer has failed to meet its burden of proving that the claimant was discharged for misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant was fired for violating the employer's attendance policy. While the claimant disputes a final incident's absence, he could not produce any evidence beyond his own testimony that he notified the employer of his absence. Meanwhile, the employer stated that the claimant did not call the employer's 800 number to report his absence, nor did he contact anyone else. As such, the claimant's violation of the employer's policy constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3632890, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. Claimant was aware of the employer's rule which prohibited dishonest behavior. Although the employer repeatedly questioned the claimant about his purchases during a truck stop, the claimant continued to lie based on his frustration with the employer. Since the claimant admitted to engaging in repeated acts of deceptive behavior, claimant's action constituted misconduct connected with the work. As such, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision is correct. The claimant was discharged for allegedly violating the employer's policy on meal breaks. The claimant was unaware of any specific policy regarding clocking out for short breaks to use the restroom and grab a snack while driving for the employer. The claimant's actions of stopping to purchase food without clocking out followed a common practice for drivers, and he had not received any prior warnings about this practice during his 39 years when he worked for the employer. Since the claimant did not knowingly fail to follow the employer's procedures on meal breaks, and because the employer failed to warn the complainant that he was violating any policy, the claimant's actions should not be considered misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3635787, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be reversed. Claimant resigned with an effective date of August 4th, 2023. The employer accepted the claimant's resignation on July 19th, 2023. However, the claimant stated she used part-time off until July 21st, 2023. Since the claimant was paid PTO until July 21st, it is that date that should be controlling for purposes of the 2-week notice rule. Furthermore, July 21st, 2023 was exactly 2 weeks before August 4th, 2023, the effective date of the claimant's resignation. When combining these aspects of the job separation together, the claimant's resignation was the equivalent of quitting with 2 weeks or less notice. As such, this case should be analyzed under section 207045 of the Act, and the claimant did not establish that working conditions were intolerable at the workplace. Therefore, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause, reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant submitted her resignation with a 1-month notice period, which the employer accepted earlier, thereby initiating the job separation. The employer testified that the claimant was less engaged in her work, but provided no evidence of any specific action or inaction that could constitute any mismanagement of her position of employment. Therefore, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
No misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. And that was the last unemployment insurance case pulled for additional discussion on docket 33. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 33.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 33.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 33.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 33.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a short recess. Oh, really? On your mangrove stuff. Yeah, no, yeah. I wondered if that was, yeah. That, when you grew that thing, fine. All right, this is agenda item 9, RESEA performance distribution.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, my name is Dawn Cronin with the Workforce Development Division. For consideration today, we have a discussion paper to distribute the FY 23 RESEA or reimbursement eligibility services program, the performance outcome payment received from the Department of Labor to our workforce boards. The discussion paper and supporting documentation are laid out in your meeting materials today. The distribution recognizes the board's efforts and contributions in providing reemployment services to UI claimants most likely to exhaust their benefits before connecting with employment. Under this distribution, each board would receive $7,500 for each month they met or exceeded the DOL performance target, and $25,000 for each month that they met or exceeded the TWC performance target. Additionally, staff is recommending a training stipend to send staff to the RESCA training day ahead of the TWC annual conference in December. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
There were several boards, it seemed like, that nobody made all 12 months, but there was more than one that made 11 months of breaking one or the other of the performance measures. And I mean, obviously that's reflected in the award, but there were some boards that had 1 or 2 months, and then others that had 11 months. And there was a wide gap between performance and that. So, you know, I would suggest that we figure out what the boards that can do 11 months are doing and help the boards that are doing 2 months understand what the boards that were doing with 11 months. Hopefully the cash distribution helps us be able to make that point. No other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the distribution of a portion of the reemployment services and eligibility assessment program performance outcome payment in the amount of $2,700,000 to be allotted to the boards as described in the discussion paper and presented today by staff.
I second.
Yeah, it's been moved second and votes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is agenda item 10, proposed amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 801, Local Workforce Development Boards.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, I'm Joel Mullins with the Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval are proposed rule amendments to Chapter 801, Local Workforce Development Boards. These proposed amendments will update Chapter 801, Subchapter A, to clarify the process to amend the count of chief elected officials based on local population shifts, elections, or other relevant events. Staff recommends submitting the proposed rule for publication in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. Staff also requests the ability to make minor non-substantive changes to the document in order to comply with the publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
So I was looking at this and I was trying to understand it, the changes to 801.10. And one of the things I got concerned about was the language that you submitted for consideration was, it seemed to be permissive, like that, as if boards had discretion on including a CEO who meets the criteria. But I couldn't find that discretion anywhere in the statute or our rule. And it turns out that the reason I couldn't find that is because there really isn't discretion. If you, the way the law is laid out, if you meet a certain threshold, then you're in. And I think our goal here, as I understand it, is that we want boards to be more proactive after following elections, following changes in population. These are the two things that are of concern to us, that they move quickly to alert elected officials that they may be eligible now to participate with the chief elected officials for that board area, or, you know, a town that was not eligible for a certain thing might very well be eligible for a certain thing. So I asked Joel, I said, is this the language you really want? And he said, no, in light of what you're telling me, I see your concerns with it seeming as if it's permissive. So I asked him, if he were to rewrite it, what would it look like? This is what he gave me. I'm offering it today as an amendment just to 0.10. The amendments for 0.16 remain the same as he's proposed. This, I think you'll agree, is the same thing that he said originally, restated in a much more direct way that I firmly believe is in conformance with our statute and any rules that we already have on the books. Would you agree that the language that we came up with secondary does the things that I just say that
Yes,
does, yeah, okay.
definitely. Yes.
I'm asking to offer this as an amendment to 801.10. Staff prepared this for me. They've seen it. He just confirmed that he and I, at least he and I agree that this does what we think it does. And it gives boards a lot more clarity in what action they're supposed to take and how they're supposed to take it. So discussion on the amendment first. Is there any objection to substituting this for the language staff provided to 801.10?
No objection here.
Yeah, I don't have any objections.
All right, hearing no objection, then we'll adopt this as an amendment to 801.10. It'll replace what came originally. So before the commission now is the amended language for 801.10 and then the original language for 801.16 as recommended by staff. Commissioner, normally I would defer to you for a motion, but I can make one quickly since I offer an amendment and kind of got us a little bit off of our agenda. I move we approve the amended amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code Chapter 801 Local Workforce Development Boards for publication for public comment as recommended by staff with the amendment that we just approved. Is there any second for that motion?
Real quick,
Yes.
additionally, if we could also have approval to, for staff to make any changes that are needed to the preamble to the proposed rule to align with
Right.
the amended rule language.
Obviously, yes.
Okay, okay.
Is there a second to my motion?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to amend staff submission for 801.10 and then to post that through the regular administrative channels for public comment, et cetera, reserving the right for staff to make any necessary conforming changes. Is there any objection to this motion and second? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So agenda item 11, final adoption of amendments to 40 Chapter 850 Vocational Rehabilitation Services Administrative Rules and Procedures.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, I am Jamie Haywood with the Vocational Rehabilitation Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration and approval are final rule amendments to Chapter 850 Vocational Rehabilitation Services Administrative Rules and Procedures, more specifically in Subchapter A, VR General Rules. The proposed amendments clarify the VR Division's comprehensive system of personnel development standards for qualified VR counselors. This is in alignment with 34 CFR 361.18 and the RSA Technical Assistance Circular 2401. The proposed rule clarifies the education and experience requirements for VR counselors. It also clarifies that VR counselors are considered qualified to perform non-delegable duties upon meeting minimum initial standards for hire, successful completion of new counselor training, and then completing an initial probationary period that allows demonstration of performance. The proposed rule also clarifies that to be hired as a VR counselor, one must have at least a bachelor's degree in a field reasonably related to VR and at least 1 year of relevant experience. In addition, the rule maintains the requirements that within 7 years from completing the initial year of training, a VR counselor is expected to complete specific graduate education requirements. And finally, the rule clarifies that the VR division helps VR counselors advance as qualified personnel by making funds available for the required graduate education under the circumstances specified in rule. These proposed rule amendments were published in the Texas Register for a 30-day comment period from June 7th to July 8th. There were no comments received and there have been no changes made to the proposed rules since that period. Staff recommends adopting these amendments to Chapter 850. This concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
No comments.
No comment.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move we approve the adoption of amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 850 Vocational Rehabilitation Services Administrative Rules and Procedures as recommended today by staff.
I second.
The move is second, vote unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 12, fiscal year 2024 SNAP ENT allocations.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. This morning, you have before you the FY25 SNAP Employment and Training allocation in the amount of $14,975,296. The Employment Services allocation in the amount of $25,695,826. In both cases, there's an inclusive an amount for the small board funding distribution that we've developed. $49,045 for SNAP ENT and $68,305 for employment services. For the employment services, it should be noted that staff made an additional modification to the allocation in light, as we briefed your offices, in light of the employment services rule change. Staff had to basically identify funding for additional staff needed at the state level to carry out employment service activities. But one of the things that we noticed as we did the just allocation was we wanted to basically, the allocation for employment services accounts for two main things with the boards. The salaries for the ES Merit staff, Texas model staff out at the board level, and then the infrastructure costs for those staff as well. The rent, utilities, resource room allocation portion of the allocation. But one of the things we noticed as we ran through the allocation was some board areas we're going to start off with a smaller operating grant piece. Once we figured out the salary piece, we're going to have a smaller operating grant piece, smaller than they got in 2024. We made a modification to the allocation to hold all 28 boards harmless to their initial operating grant of 2024. And so that modification was made to the allocation as well. That concludes my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
No questions.
No questions. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2025 Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Employment and Training Program Employment and Training and Employment Services Funding allocations as recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion carries. It's agenda item 13, report on available apprenticeships in Texas.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, Carrie Ballast, Workforce Development Division. Texas Labor Code, Section 302.0191 states that the Texas Workforce Commission must report on active apprenticeship programs in the state and make recommendations to expand the availability of apprenticeship programs in emerging and high-demand industries and occupations. At this time, staff requests the Commission's approval of the report as presented in your notebook materials. If approved, program will work with our governmental relations staff for delivery to the Texas Legislature by September 1. This concludes my remarks. I am happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
No questions.
No question.
Dr. Ballast,
Yes, sir.
in light of our upcoming schedule, would you characterize your blouse today as University of Texas orange, University of Tennessee orange, or Sam Houston State University Bearcat orange?
Oh, if my dad's listening, this is for you, Dad. This is for the Bearcat.
Bearcat orange. All right, great answer. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the program year 2024 report on available apprenticeships in Texas as recommended today by staff.
A second.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going
This
to
is
keep.
agenda item 14, performance standards for eligible training providers.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, for the record, Carrie Ballast, Workforce Development Division. In November of 2018, Texas Workforce Commission's three-member commission approved removal of minimum performance standards from the criteria for training programs eligibility for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act eligible training providers list. While performance standards were removed, the training providers have continued to submit performance data annually for research and informational purposes consistent with WIOA requirements and TWC rule. At this time, staff recommend approval of standards and other considerations as laid out in your notebook materials. This concludes my remarks. I am happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act performance standards for eligible training providers as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. The vote's unanimous. Motion carries. This is agenda item 15, report on cross-agency coordination on apprenticeship and work-based learning programs.
Thank you. For the record, Carrie Ballast, Workforce Development Division. Rider 51 of the General Appropriations Act, ADA, the Texas Legislature, directs Texas Workforce Commission to gather information about cross-agency coordination on apprenticeship and other work-based learning funding. The rider also charges TWC to work with the Texas Education Agency and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to identify available funding sources for future apprenticeship and work-based learning programs, and to make recommendations on future collaborations in the award of grants supporting work-based learning. At this time, staff requests the Commission's approval of the report as presented in your notebook materials. If approved, the program will work with our governmental relations staff for delivery to the Legislative Budget Board, Senate Finance Committee, House Appropriations Committee, and the Office of the Governor. This report will also be posted to the TWC website. This concludes my remarks. I am happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
Dr. Ballast, I just want to say thank you to you and your team for gathering all this information and presenting it today.
Thank you.
Same. No questions.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the report on cross-agency coordination on apprenticeship and work-based learning programs as described in the discussion paper and recommended today by staff.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Votes unanimous and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is agenda item 16, annual 2024 report on the transition from military service to employment.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Trevino, Commissioner Esparza, and Mr. Townsend. I am Bob Gear, Director of the Texas Veterans Leadership Program with the Workforce Division. Texas Labor Code, Chapter 302.020 requires the Texas Workforce Commission to submit an annual report on the transition from military service to employment to the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Texas legislature by the 1st of September. So before you, this year's report, I was going to highlight a few sections that include TWC's commitment to serving veterans, the Texas Workforce Commission overview of ourselves and community partners, the Texas veteran unemployment rates. We also want to highlight our own TWC veteran programs, such as success stories of the Texas Veterans Leadership Program, the Texas Veterans Network, We Hire Vets, and the Military Family Support Program. We highlight TWC partners who have developed veteran programs locally. The final section lists the 5 most common transitioning military MOSs, lists our occupational specialties, industry-based certifications that align with the military occupational specialties and their civilian occupation counterparts. And for this year, the top 5 are, no surprise, infantrymen and riflemen. So we have Army Marine Corps. Number 2 is Almeida Logistics Specialist, all logistics acquisitions across all branches of the service. Number 3 is a wheel vehicle mechanic, construction mechanics, generator mechanics. Number 4, healthcare specialist, aerospace medical. I don't want to get in trouble with the Navy, so hospital corpsman. And number 5 is computer network support specialist, computer system programming, and information support technician. Staff is seeking this commissioner approval of this year's annual report for submission to the governor, lieutenant governor, and to the Texas legislature. This concludes my presentation and happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments or questions?
Comment is, Ms. Gear, thank you again also for you and your team for all the work that you do for the veterans here in Texas.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, Bob, thank you. Some part of the data that shows that Gulf War I era veterans had dropped since 2023 to over in the past year. It says by 1.7%. We'll want to discuss a little bit, maybe find out what the causation for that was, as opposed to the Gulf War II veterans on that side. Just like I said, it's great data and it's very important. So thanks, Bob, for collecting that.
Thank you,
Put it
Commissioner.
together. no questions on that.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, the work we're doing for veterans is important work. You guys are doing a great job. And I want to compliment you personally on your growth. You've mentioned other branches of the military today by name. You
Yeah,
said Marine Corps and Navy.
and Air Force is listed, and
This is-
construction mechanic, we got it. I don't
We're
have. the
coming a
Space
long
Force
way,
yet.
Bob. We really, no,
Yes,
you
Mr. Chair.
guys do great work. We're very proud of all those guys and gals that serve our country, and particularly the ones that want to stay here and be a part of our workforce. They are an absolute critical part of our workforce. This report bears part of that out. I still think there's a lot of work to do, what we're doing through Veterans Leadership Program, and I think what we're doing through our Veterans Network and a couple other initiatives that we've got, I actually think are making great strides at helping ease that. Department of Defense is working with us well, I think, on the basis as people transition out of the military. I don't think our work is in any way here done, but I think we're making great progress on the things that need to be doing. I think we're helping a lot of service members re-enter our Texas civilian workforce, and I think they're going to make a great contribution there. Any other comments or questions?
None here.
None. Well put, Chairman.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the annual 2024 report on the transition from military service to employment for submission to the governor and legislature as recommended today by staff.
I second.
It's been moved second, votes unanimous, and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's agenda item 17. Board nominations.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, Kara Wheeler with Workforce Development Division. Today, for your consideration, we have Workforce Board nominations for Alamo, Brazos Valley, Cameron, Capital Area, Concho, Golden Crescent, Lower Rio, Middle Rio, North Texas, Northeast Texas, Coastal Bend, and Permian Basin. Staff recommends approval on the presented nominees, and I'm here for any questions you may have.
Are there any comments or questions?
Mrs. Wheeler, thank you for being here today. I understand it's your first time presenting.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. I think you did a great job, so appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm quite nervous.
Kara, where do you park?
Or do I park?
Yeah, you like your parking space? How do they dole those out?
Yeah. That's a question I was going to ask first too, but I changed it.
Oh, well, we can talk later.
Kara's being a good sport, but her eyes are suggesting we should move on with this deal.
My knees are rattling right now.
Are you nervous? You
Yes,
should
sir.
not be nervous. This is probably the easiest part of your job is dealing with the three of us.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good to
this is a
know.
kinder and gentler commission. I was just gonna ask you, obviously you talked to each of these nominees individually on the phone. I was just gonna ask you how your conversation went with each one of them.
We're actually not allowed to speak to them.
Good answer. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the local workforce development board member nominees presented today for the following: Workforce Solutions, Alamo, Brazos Valley, Cameron County, Capital Area, Concho Valley, Golden Crescent, Lower Rio Grande Valley, Middle Rio Grande, North Texas, Northeast Texas, Coastal Bend, and Permian Basin.
I second.
It's been moved second, the vote's unanimous and the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, is there an executive director? I saw somebody smiling back there that might want to give a legislative report, but I don't think that's the case. Is there an executive director's report today? Not today. Mr. Cerna's not here. It's a good opportunity for you to tell us what's going on. It's also, he said it's a good opportunity for him not to say anything too. Is there any other order of business that come before the commission?
None here.
No, sir.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Before we, are you gonna second?
I will
that?
second.
Before we second that, I was almost remiss. I did want to introduce a new staff member that's joining our team as a staff attorney. This is Alex Hicks. If you get a chance, Alex loves to talk about both University of Michigan and Ohio State football. If you get a chance, you can talk to Alex about that in the hallway, but you do so at your own peril because she's a Michigan State graduate. Go Spartans. All right. It's been welcome. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we are adjourned. Thank you.